Okay, let's try to look at a few things. What we want to do in this course is the following. We're going after first introduction and first brainstorming on how do artists approach historically seen the market. That's what Benno will first talk about. We're then going to talk about experience economy. That's the next stage of economic development where we move from agricultural economy to manufacturing economy to service economy to what recently we talk about experience economy. Specifically in the saturated, more sophisticated markets of of Europe and the States, where you see that you start to build an experience around a product or a service to attract the customer, and you can draw a lot from arts, as I will show you, for that. We're also going to look at what could art tell us about being innovative approaches, and of course that's directly linked also with what stimulates creativity. We're also going to see that a lot of artists have changed in the course of their life in the style of what they produced, in the things they produced. Picasso is a good example, Van Gogh is another one, we're going to show that. So we could draw lessons there for change management. And finally, we also want to show you at the end, partly with an exercise and partly by showing you differences, is what could be your contribution to innovation in an organization if you describe your personality in a different way. So we're going to look at CVs of artists compared to what your normal CV would be, and see if you look at the way artists formulate their CV and how far you could enrich your own CV and present yourself, brand yourself more or less to an employer in a different way. There is a group of people who work on, let's say, this whole issue of creativity and arts, and I've selected a few of their statements. Many say that we now live in an information economy and knowledge economy, but what's more fundamentally true is that we're living in an economy powered by creativity. The creativity element becomes more and more the important distinction between companies. Why? Because a lot of, let's say, technology is transferred quickly. Being ahead of others, let's say having what in strategy you would call a core competence in a technological area is quickly copied by others. However, what your people have inside of them in creativity, and if you're able to tap that, that's much more difficult for competitors to copy. So the whole creativity is an important element more and more in being competitive for companies. This is another statement which goes in the same way. Arts can encourage and foster new styles of thinking, change completely your perspective. But arts and business, as you've already said, are often seen in different worlds. At the side of arts, you talk about imagination, about creativity, about taking risk. In the business side, we often talked about pragmatism, structure, and control. Now, what's interesting to see is that in recent times, the parameters of business have changed so much because the environment is changing so rapidly, and as a result of that, things are less predictable, that elements like imagination, risk-taking, creativity also for business become more important. The pure planning side, also when I work with companies on a strategy in former times, let's say 15 years back, you were working on the strategic plan and you included all the parameters which could have an influence on the sector, on that business, and based on that you came with your strategic plan, how you wanted to position the company in that sector. Nowadays, the changes are so rapid. The competitors come from unexpected angles, sometimes also from sectors which are not your sector, but because of deregulation, etc., they're able to offer services in your sector, that you need to be much more flexible. So some of these elements you need to use more. What you also see is that there is often a stereotyping. We talked about that. You have this sort of idea, well, artists are carefree, laid back, free spirits, and that's completely different from business. But artists are also structured, also need self-discipline. Often they're seen as slow and a bit meandering, but the slow, it's often linked with the quality of what they want to do. We're going to see that when Benno talks about Lucian Freud, somebody who takes much longer to make a painting than others, has to do with the quality of what wants to achieve. But also artists have rigid time schedules, short turnaround times, and that's specifically for business at the moment interesting, they often have to do with very limited budgets. And so how can we do more with less, which a lot of companies also have as a slogan? You can also derive lessons from artists for that basis. So different worlds, but worlds where there are more and more parallels.